Welcome to Trick Me If You Can, adversarial writing of trivia challenge questions, where humans and computers work together to create tricky questions that computers struggle to answer. We then host a trivia competition to see whether man or machine is better at answering questions. In our previous videos, two human teams, Hell No, seen here, and the University of Maryland advanced to the semifinals by defeating their computer opponents.
Take that, science.
We did it.
Take
For
that.
now, humanity prevails. But soon.
In addition to the scores for the individual human teams, we're still going to report how the combined human team did against the top computer team, FYY. Whichever human buzzes first on a question will be counted as the human team's response.
Does this mean we have to face real human people?
Exactly.
We have Hal No on my left, and we have University of Maryland A team on my right. Is everybody ready? Shall we get going?
Yep.
All right. In 2018, researchers announced a new genus of these organisms, batrachians, which was discovered in a cave in Thailand. That's a relief, given that the chytrid fungus is threatening its members, such as the emerald glass species. Luigi Galvani noted that the limbs of these organisms move when they came into contact.
Frogs.
That's correct. Toss-up 2. HV905 is an example of the bump variety of these objects. Light curves for these objects can have characteristic sawtooth or shark fin shapes. Some of the type 2 variety of these objects are named for W. virginis and typically have periods between 10 and
Like variable stars.
I'll prompt you.
Cepheus.
That's correct. Toss-up 3. This character devises a plan to ransom 2 of his captured friends in exchange for 4 rooks from an exquisite ivory chess set. A novel title for this man includes 2 sisters named Judith and Hetty, who are the adopted daughters of Floating Tom Hutter. In another novel, this man and the singing teacher David Gammett use a bear disguise as part of their plan to...
Natty Bumpo.
That's correct. Toss-up. A book by Robert Rosenblum, partly titled for modern painting, argues that Mark Rothko was directly inspired by this artist. A scene by this artist was reimagined with downed planes in Paul Nash's Totus Mare. A family of 5 on a shoreline is represented as 5 ships at differing distances from the viewer.
Casper David Friedrich.
That's correct. A trial class of compounds for use in this process are selective inhibitors of Cat6A and Cat6B. A class of compounds used in this process is harvested from Streptomyces bacterium and are called anthracyclines. This process was developed after analysis of the adverse effects of nitrogen mustard on cell division. About half of people undergoing this process receive a form of platinum-based
Chemotherapy.
Well, good. Toss up. The co-host of the Pittsburgh Call-In Show, Left Out, was the first author on the paper that showed the distance between 2 of these with n elements is at most 2n minus 6. That distance is defined in terms of operations that preserve order but change structure called rotations, which is the first step of the Day-Stout-Warren algorithm. The CART algorithm forms the decision type of these structures, and the red-black type...
Trees.
Yeah, that's right. Toss-up. In this country, an officer tells his mistress, the Countess Renata, about his wartime experience in the Hurtgen forest. The frame story of a novel set in this country is a duck hunting trip undertaken by the dying Colonel Richard Cantwell. A soldier is kicked out of a hospital in this country by Miss Van Campen when he contracts jaundice due to his heavy drinking. This setting...
Italy.
That's correct. J.S. Bach rearranged 2 parts of a Missa sine nomine by this composer using 2 cornets and 4 trombones. This man's contentious relationship with Carlo Borromeo is depicted in a namesake opera by Hans Pfitzner. This composer is represented by Aloysius in the second part of Johannes Fuchs' treatise Gradus ad Parnassum. According to a popular legend, a composition by this man caused the That's correct. This element is the most widespread catalyst of the azide-alkyne cycloaddition. Salts of this element catalyze the reaction of diazonium salts into aryl halides in the Sandmeyer reaction.
Copper.
That's correct. In October 2018, a provincial capital announced plans to launch an artificial moon to replace streetlights.
China.
That's right. The author's preface to this play ironically begins by claiming that it needs a sequel instead of a preface. In this play's final act, a man resents having to lecture for the Wannafeller Moral War...
Pygmalion.
That's correct. Toss-up. This composer included an accompaniment from a glass harmonica in his aria beginning, "The sweet sound of the voice struck me." In an opera by this man, the Marquise of Birkenfield whisks away a relative to make her a lady, just as a tenor sings an aria containing 9 high Cs. Ah, mes amis.
Donizetti.
Can you repeat your answer, please?
Donizetti.
Okay. Can you repeat that one more time?
Donizetti.
-5. To express his joy at joy...
Donizetti.
Yeah, I heard Donizetti, so I'm going to give you -5.
Sorry.
Elite warriors of this empire wore a distinctive white and black checkered tunic with a red V-neck. Before embarking on a military campaign, priests in this empire sacrificed children and black pack animals. This was the largest empire whose troops regularly used bolas in combat. Jared Diamond argues.
That's me.
Yep.
Carthage.
-5, that this empire's demise was partly due to their lack of ironworking, allowing a force of 200 adversaries to slay 7,000 of this empire's warriors at Cajamarca. Atahualpa was the last emperor of for 10 points.
The Incas.
That's correct. Toss up 14. In Matthew 12, when the Pharisees asked Jesus for a sign, Jesus tells a wicked and adulterous generation that there will be none except for the sign of this man. God tells the son of Amittai, or truth, that the Lord has concern for 120,000 people. Yep, that's right. Toss up the fragment, A Ship of Death, was adapted from this language during a years-long translation project in which its author identified a verb meaning to suffer that he recognized from childhood. A cowherd composed a poem about the creation of the world in this language after he was granted the gift of song in a dream. Cadman's hymn is in this language.
Old English.
That's right. Early photographs of this region, such as Woodward's Gardens, were taken by Carlton Watkins and published under the pseudonym Helios. A Robert Frank photograph taken in this state shows a tarp-covered car framed by two large trees. A photograph of a man reading a newspaper in front of a public works building and in front of young girls performing calisthenics were taken in this state.
California.
That's right. The guardian of a pass at a frontier mound compares this man to a wooden bell that alerts the people of danger. This man says the strength of the North is in weapon making, the strength of the South is in gentleness, and the strength of the nobleman is to stand in the center, in a book that is attributed to his grandson titled The Doctrine of the Mean.
Wowza.
-5. A tradition named for this man champions 5 constants and 4 virtues and includes the 4 books and the 5 classics. For 10 points, name this man whose disciple...
Confucius.
That's right, for 10. Frey and Ali cite Leroux's critique of this language as an excuse for a long-delayed translation of Kant. A 2002 Peter Adamson book is titled for a fragment in this language written by one of many people known by the name of Pseudo-Aristotle. A thinker who wrote in this language adapted Philopoemus' argument that the world is not eternal in his text On First Philosophy. A philosopher writing in this language told of ascetic life in the revival of the religious sciences and described 20 errors made by a predecessor. That's right, for 10.
Sorry, I should have guessed earlier.
In this novel, a man relates the story of the trial of the jawbone in which he debated an English scientist on the authenticity of a quaternary fossil. A character in this novel almost stars his nephew to death when he forces him to go without food until they can decode a message written in a runic chapter by the alchemist Arne Saknussemm. The main characters of this book see a coastal plain full of massive mushrooms and a battle between 2 dinosaurs after they enter the crater...
War of the Worlds.
-5 of an Icelandic volcano. For 10 points, name this work of
Journey to the Center of the Earth.
That's correct. In this novel, a boy is shocked when his teacher asks him to use crayon rubbings to create the impression of a gravestone from a historical cemetery during a field trip. The protagonist of this book dates an English major named Ruth until she returns from a study abroad in Britain, later taking up with the art historian Maxine Ratliff. A man in this novel survived a train accident by signaling for help with a page from a collection of Russian short stories, leading him to call his son Gogol. That's correct. Okay, so we're at halftime now.
I have UMD with 120 and Cal No with 60.
Yep.
Sounds right.
Toss up 21. A theory of justice defines the original position as this concept within the framework of an empirical theory. This concept is defined by an autonomy formula and a humanity formula that holds that we should never use other people solely as a means rather than as an ends. This concept, which is more wide-reaching than the similar hypothetical statements, is described...
The categorical
What you think it is, yes.
Yes, it is indeed the categorical imperative. You get 10 points. Toss up in 2017, the holder of this position was criticized for insulting Bashar al-Assad by claiming that even Adolf Hitler did not use chemical weapons.
like press secretary.
That's right. This writer asked for the sacred threads of the works of my beloved teacher in his poem beginning, If love or death do not bring some flaw to this new cloth that I now weave. He wrote a posthumously published dialogue with St. Augustine titled Secretum and, in a letter, told of taking a copy of the Confessions on an ascent of Mont Ventoux.
That's right.
That's right. Robert Kennedy memorialized his brother by quoting Romeo and Juliet during a DNC held in this city, which nominated Lyndon Johnson in 1964. A politician...
Miami.
-5. A politician in this city was known for wearing a suit with a red carnation in his buttonhole. A 1929 summit in this city marked the foundation of the National Crime Syndicate. Enoch Lucky Johnson was a crime boss in this city where the modern incarnation Miss America pageant began in 1921. Nelson Johnson's book Boardwalk Empire is about, for 10 points, what New Jersey resort town?
Atlantic City.
That's right. Toss up. Many objects used in this activity are made according to the design of Howard Staunton. The hypermodern strategy.
Chess.
That's right.
Staunton pieces.
Toss up. The majority of people who participate in the Umuganda ritual of compulsory community service are from this ethnic group. These people gained power in the social revolution, sometimes called the Wind of Destruction. These people are the majority of the population in the habitat of, and once subjugated, the Twa Pygmy people. The Interahamwe militia, composed of...
Hutu.
That's right. Toss up. Aristomenes was honored as a hero in leading one of these events. According to Thucydides, Pausanias was killed for consorting with Persians and for planning one of these events. Cimon was ostracized after the Spartans ordered his hoplites back to Athens during one of these events, in which the perpetrators established a stronghold on Mount Ithome.
Like a Helot revolt.
I'll accept that. Yep. Slave rebellions in general. Toss up. As USAG for the Southern District, he investigated Bill Clinton's pardon of Mark Rick in light of
Rudy Giuliani.
-5. In light of Rich's donations to the Clinton Presidential Library. He was acting as Attorney General in March 2004 when John Ashcroft was hospitalized and resisted expanding domestic wiretapping. His college thesis compared Reinhold Niebuhr and Jerry Falwell and led the discovery of his Twitter account.
James Comey.
That's right. J. Gordon Kugler, who was nicknamed the last bard of this region, wrote a poem that laments her books have grown fewer. This region was called the most backwards part of its country in the essay The Sahara of the Beaux-Arts.
Like the South.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In early 2018, this college's team became embroiled in a scandal when its star player's name appeared in a black market book for a $36,000 payment marked bad loan. Before playing 8 seasons as a point guard for the Wizards, John Wall played a year for...
University of Kentucky.
That's correct. Thomas Reimer prophesies that this man will lead a glorious life in an epic poem named for him that shares many episodes with a similar work by John Barber. This man killed the sheriff William Hesselrig in a skirmish at Lanark. This subject of a poem by Blind Harry resigned his command.
William Wallace.
That's right.
Yeah, fine.
A group called the Iron and Stone Ramification, or VVS, advocated against the European rule of this region, which began when a protectorate was established with the Sakalava people. Peasants.
Madagascar.
Good buzz. Applying this law to anisotropic media normally requires finding the roots to a sixth order polynomial equation. Some metamaterials achieve a reversal of this law.
Snell's law.
That's right.
I was gonna say that.
Toss up. The lead up to this war included a dispute over lead mining rights supposedly granted by the Treaty of St. Louis. In the aftermath of this war, Winfield Scott concluded the purchase of the 40-mile strip. In the decisive action of this war, a brigade under Henry Atkinson massacred members of the British band at the Battle of Bad Axe. Abraham Lincoln's...
The Black Hawk War?
That's right.
Okay.
One thing I thought was interesting is that the human moderator did on-the-fly editing to include this war, just like he added this country to the China question. This makes the question easier for both humans and computers. Computers can only answer the question after seeing the word war, even though it's fairly clear from context that this is a war. Like many of the questions in this packet, FYI, it's just slightly slower than the humans and can't get the toss-up first.
Pilley and Reed used play rewards to teach over 1,000 words to one of these animals named Chaser. In an experiment partly conducted by Stephen Mayer, 3 groups of these animals were subject to electric shocks in shuttle boxes. Those who had previously received inescapable shocks demonstrated learned helpless dogs. That's correct.
Yeah.
This man reached an agreement with British diplomat George Russell Clark that allowed his national army to occupy most of his country's territory. While this man was negotiating with a rival at Klesheim, that rival ordered the occupation of this man's country and Operation Margareta. Otto Skorzeny kidnapped this man's son using... 7.
Oh, is it me? Oh, okay. Hungarian dude. Miklos Horthy.
Yes. Nice. This dynasty received the French ambassador Victor Collin de Plancy, the subject of the book The Court Dancer. An assassination plot in 1456 led to the execution of the 6 martyred ministers who wrote death poems affirming their loyalty to this dynasty. A naval commander from this dynasty improved the... That's right. Frederick Forsyth's first book was about this war, and he inspired a literary...
The Biafra War.
I'll accept that.
Nice.
An artwork produced in this country uses blue, white, black, and gray to depict 8 people engaging in the title Baccarat game. The second cover of a magazine produced in this country showed a large red square and a black number 2, while its first cover by Vilmos Hussar shows black geometric shapes on a light green...
Hungary.
Nope, -5. Green background. A painter from this country decided to only work in yellow, red, blue, and bounded by black, white, and gray. For 10 points, name this country where neoplasticism was championed by Piet Mondrian and Theo van Doesburg.
The Netherlands.
That's right. Possession by these beings can be treated by vigorously blowing air into the victim's mouth while cursing. These beings did not realize the death of their master until a worm gnawed away at his staff.
Jin.
That's right.
And with that, Maryland has won the right to take on Rage Against the Machines in the final. Rage Against the Machines remains undefeated, but Maryland has only lost to Rage Against the Machines. Who will win the final match? And you'll also get to see what would happen if computers were playing in the final match against the combined human team. This has been part of our series on human-computer question answering competitions, where we pit human teams against computer teams to see who's smarter. We help you get in on the fun by creating your own systems or participating in these events, and explaining what's going on from both the human perspective and the computer's perspective. You can find more by clicking on the links or by going to quanta.org, where quanta stands for question answering is not a trivial activity.